Hi, loves. So today we will be discussing about high school relationships, and I'm here with Indy, Oliver, and Shayna. And our first question is going to be, what are our thoughts on high school relationships? And I'm going to answer first. And honestly, I feel like I have a pretty typical viewpoint on it. I think it depends on the people, and ultimately, depending on the maturity levels and what they've been through, that really depends on how well the relationship's going to work. So now I'm going to pass it on to Oliver.
I also think it depends on the couple. I feel like having role models also helps. I feel like on TV we see all the typical teen relationships where it's all lovey-dovey and it's just not like that. There are always like hills.
Think it's just on your emotional maturity. The model thing works too. Being able to communicate and process your emotions and feelings in a mature way is really what matters and what counts. Because if you can't argue with your significant other and then work it out, then it's just kind of like telling that it's not gonna last. And now it's going on to Shayna.
It's about if you can handle all the ups and downs because everything's not going to be okay all the time. And if, like everyone else said, if you have the maturity to be able to work out your problems and the communication to work out your problems, I think that things can go smoothly.
So moving on to the next question, how would you guys think that teen relationships compare to adult relationships? Like, do you think that they're pretty much the same, or do you think the maturity levels can complicate that in any way, shape, or form? Shane, I'm gonna ask you this.
I think they can differ a lot, actually, because sometimes you'll know, like, high school relationships that can be better than adult relationships. I don't know, a lot of families just don't get along very well and they fight a lot, and you see things on TV about how things just don't go well. So I think it just depends on who you are.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I think that it just depends on the people yet again. But I also think that in high school the love is very new, and you're almost in the honeymoon stage in high school, and you don't have a lot to worry about. You don't have financial problems. You don't have kids to worry about. You're really just living in the moment. So I feel like the love there is a lot stronger. And then whenever you become to live life and you become adults, that's when things start getting harder, and that's when relationships start having, they it starts taking a toll on relationships. So I guess it just really depends on how you handle things and the life that you're setting up for yourself. Because if you have to worry about money and kids and stress and such, your relationship is really gonna like hurt from that. So
When you grow up and you're exposed to the real world, you can change. Adult relationships, there is always like a lot of change, and in high school, you change a little, you get more mature, but it's not that complete change of where now you're an adult. Until you're like 18, you never really think about the things that are going on in the real world, and like how you can handle things like an adult. We're still kids, so I think that's really important to think about. Um,
Nevaeh, I really agree with what you said about like the adult problems coming in, like with the like financial and like getting a house. Like I feel like all of these really complicated like adult things like really change how people perceive their relationships, because I feel like all of that stress could like really come into play if you don't know how to handle it properly.
I see that now because like I did just get a house and everything with my significant other, and like we started when we were babies. I was in 8th grade when we got together, and who I was then is completely different who I am now. So I've got to see that change, and we've been through the honeymoon phase, and it's just all different. And like I can see it now, but I can't imagine what it'll be like in 10 years, like if we didn't communicate the way that we did. And I can definitely see why some adult relationships end in divorce. Like I can see that.
the adult thing is, my dad and my biological mom got together when they were really young, and there's a significant age difference. My dad was more grown up, and my biological mom was less grown up, meaning like she was 12. Okay, and so my dad, he didn't like understand like why she acted like a child the way she did, and sometimes like that made him really upset. So I can see why they didn't work out, because there's like a significant change, and like he was growing up and she wasn't. But I think that's really important to think about, because some people after high school they don't grow up. They stay as like a child, and a lot of people who do graduate from high school, like they grow up, they realize like they need to be able to live their life like as a grown up, communicate. And some people just get stuck in the high school phase of a relationship. Any other comments?
So, my past relationship, we had our honeymoon phase and everything was fine for like the first year. And then when we hit high school and all of these, like stresses came at us with the homework and like high school drama, like it really. And high school, there's always that pressure of being in a relationship and not being like single. Like nobody wants to be single in high school, and I just felt like neither of us felt like we could break up, so we stayed in that relationship for 3 years, even though neither of us were really that happy.
The first part of my relationship wasn't very great. The first like year and a half that I dated my other, we didn't really talk, and we've just learned to grow and love each other, and I think that took a long time it took us a long time to figure out who we were. And I think if people are just willing to grow with each other and go through all the hard times that they have together, it will be okay. And I don't think that if you don't want to be with someone, just don't be with someone. Don't waste a person's time on loving them and feeling like they're gonna be there for you and just not be there for you. Just say you don't want to be with another person.
And I think that goes along with like a lot of like adult relationships. Like we can talk about how high school relationships and adult relationships differ, but there are a lot of similarities too. Like once an adult like gets married, in high school we feel like this connection with this person, and a lot of time these feelings are intense because we have hormones and all of those things, and we feel like we're stuck with this person and that we have to make it work. And I feel like that's what happens with a lot of adults too, that we don't see, because especially in churches and religious environments, like in high school too, like if someone in my church liked my significant other but we weren't working out, I would feel pressure to stay with them. And that's how adults feel too, especially after they're married.
After they have kids,
Yeah.
Having kids is a big factor in that.
Because they don't want to disappoint anyone, especially their children or their friends or their mom who likes their significant other.
Right.
Or like, so I think it's really important to think about like how like society's pressures like affect high school and adult relationships.
I think people forget that how important communication is. Like even with adult and teen relationships, you need communication to work. And there's like, especially in like, maybe straight couples, there's a lot of pressure on like guys, like, men are never supposed to talk about their feelings. And if I have learned anything from my newest relationship that I am in right now, it's that communication is the most like important thing. Because we have learned that communicating like is going to keep us going, and we are going strong, and we are doing great because we communicate.
So my ex-relationship, well, it wasn't really a relationship. It was kind of like a situationship. But he'd promised me all these things, and I think it's like important to think about promises too. And you can't give someone more than you can't promise someone more than you can give. I don't know if that makes sense, but he promised me that one day we were gonna, he was gonna help me with my family and stuff, and I was really head over heels. But the thing is, he was very more, not emotionally mature, but socially mature. I don't know if that makes sense, because he didn't understand that I had insecurities, and that I needed to be reassured. Reassurance is a big thing, and especially in adult relationships. I was watching season 3 of Love Is Blind, and look, that was crazy, because there's you have a 25-year-old marrying a 33-year-old, and this 33-year-old, she's very insecure, and I understand why women are so insecure in relationships and stuff, because things happen, and men feel the same way too. And so watching that relationship of him growing, and because he grew up in such a short time, he started off as a Chad, a Giga Chad or whatever. and so you know, you watched him go from like being a kid to an adult for like this woman, and he like tried his best, but she like still didn't accept his best. So I think like, you know, being able to, you know, reassure your partner and grow for your partner too is really important.
And I have something to add to that too. So, I mean, I think I have a little bit of a different perspective from, maybe not. I mean, we haven't really talked about this, but I'm going to go a little deeper. And I would say, like, when I was little 8th grade me, little 14-year-old Nevaeh, and I got with my partner, my first instinct was to try to fix them because they had a lot of issues with their home life. So that was like my main goal, was like to try to take their pain away like the whole time. And so like that's where how I went into the relationship at first, was to try to fix them and I was trying to fix their problems and, you know, take all their pain away. And like I had to realize through the relationship that that wasn't really my place, and that they kind of had to do it on their own, and I was just supposed to be there for like support and everything. And rather than getting involved in the situations, it was kind of just my job to be there. And I think that's something that had to come with maturing. And I think that's something that a lot of people like don't see in high school, is the privileged kids will get with the privileged kids. Like they don't get to see like what happens like really like in homes, and like broken homes, and, you know, real life issues. So then like the privileged kids, their relationship is a lot different from the kids who aren't, because I think that they don't have to go through that stage of life where you have to really go through something real. Like everything's handed to you, love is just there, you know, you don't have to worry about whether your parents are going to hit you the next day. You don't have to worry about stuff like that. And they hand you money all the time. You don't have to work. It's just like people who don't go through that in high school, I feel like don't really understand how being in a relationship when you are an adult is really going to work. Because like if you don't have to balance out a schedule and you don't have to make time for your partner and you just have everything handed to you, I don't think that you're really going to understand what adulting and being in a relationship is. I think it's more of like children dating rather than adults dating. I feel like there's two different spectrums, and I feel like you're on either or. And I think in our area we see a lot of children rather than a lot of adults in relationships, and I think that's why a lot of people don't last. But you can see the ones who do last are the ones who are in that situation.
Speaking of like, you know, the children and relationship things, like even as they're adults, you still see the immaturities. I think there's a lot of you know, pressure, especially on kids who are like Christians, like to get married after high school, and a lot of the time it's the guys that like, you know, like are like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna marry this girl. And it's kind of sad to think about how you know, you just get married right out of high school, and you don't even grow up with this person. You guys just stay the same. And especially like I had two people that I know that got, like, they were high school sweethearts. They got married, and then right after high school they were divorced, and both like ended up in like very like sad situations with new significant others because they didn't know how to, you know, say no or like, you know, grow up, because
No one really teaches us how to be like adults. Like I feel like in high school they don't teach you how to be in a relationship. Like they don't give us any education on that. That's something we have to figure out on our own. And I know a lot of people, their families aren't even good role models for relationships. Like a lot of people I know really aren't. So you kind of have to figure it out on your own. But when you do that, you get exposed to a lot of BS that is just, you know, it's not good for.
Also, I feel like although like the BS is hard and it makes things a lot more difficult, it can also make the relationship more special.
Yes.
Because you're going through really hard things together, but you're doing it with each other and you're figuring out life together. And also, it might just be hard and you might want to give up at times, but as long as you guys like truly love each other, you'll still work with it.
I have to check the
That's all for our podcast. Bye, loves.
Bye.